Let me tell you something about numbers. I work with numbers every day. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week in a call center, where my job is to help people understand their accounts, their balances, their statements. I am very good at numbers. I know when they add up, and I know when they don't. Our tax refund was supposed to be $4,216. I know this because I had been checking the IRS portal every day since we filed in February. $4,216. 11 months of overtime shifts. 11 months of packing lunches instead of buying them. 11 months of watching that number grow in my head, knowing it was coming, planning what we were going to do with it. Pay down the credit card, start the emergency fund we had been talking about for 2 years. Maybe, a weekend somewhere. $4,216. And then, one Tuesday morning in March, I checked the portal. Status, deposited. Account ending, not mine, not ours, his. My name is Brittany Cole. I am 28 years old. I have spent 11 months being very careful with money, and I am about to explain very carefully what happens when someone takes money that isn't theirs. With numbers, filed correctly, to the right government agency. My name is Brittany Cole. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, the East Side, the part of the city that is working class in the specific, honest way of neighborhoods that don't apologize for what they are. My mother worked in a school cafeteria for 23 years. My father drove a delivery truck. They were people who paid their bills and kept their word, and believed, fundamentally, that the numbers had to add up. I got a job at True Call Solutions at 22, a mid-sized call center in Westerville, the suburb just north of Columbus. Customer service for a financial services company. Accounts, balances, statements. The specific patient work of explaining numbers to people who are frustrated or confused or scared about money. I am good at this work. Not because I love it, it is not the work I would have chosen if the world had been organized differently, but because I am precise and patient, and I have the specific quality of someone who does not make errors with other people's money. I have always been careful with money. It was necessary growing up. It remained necessary as an adult. I met Derek Cole at 24. He was 27. He worked at a warehouse on the south side, receiving and shipping, the overnight shift, the kind of job that pays decently for the hours, and that Derek had been doing for 4 years by the time we met. He was funny in the easy, unforced way of someone who is comfortable in his own skin. He was warm. He was the kind of person who shows up, to help a friend move, to fix something that needed fixing, to be present in the specific, undemanding way that I had come to understand by 24 was rarer than it should be. We got married at 26. We rented an apartment in Whitehall, the neighborhood between Columbus and the East Side where I grew up, practical and familiar. 2 years of marriage, and a tax refund that was supposed to be ours. I need to tell you about the money. Not just the refund, the whole shape of our finances, because the shape matters for understanding what Derek did and how I found out about it and what I was able to do about it. We filed jointly. This was Derek's suggestion, made in our first year of marriage, with the specific practical reasoning that joint filing maximized the refund, which was true. It did. We got more back filing together than we would have separately. What joint filing also meant was that our incomes were combined on the return, which meant our refund was based on both of our withholdings, which meant that the $4,216 represented both of our overpayments to the federal government over the course of the year. My portion of that refund was approximately $2,800. Derek's portion was approximately $1,400. He had directed the full amount to his individual account, not our joint account, his, the one I did not have access to, the one that had existed, I would learn in the days after the Tuesday morning when I checked the portal, of approximately 14 months, opened not long after we got married, maintained quietly, in parallel with the joint account, as a separate repository for money that Derek apparently needed to keep separate from our shared life. I did not know about this account. I found out about it the way I found out about everything that week, by asking the right questions of the right database. I called the IRS first, not in a panic, in the specific methodical way of someone who works in financial services and knows that when a number doesn't match, you start with the source. The IRS hold time was 47 minutes. I know this because I was at work, on my lunch break, with my own headset in, sitting in my car in the parking lot. When the agent came on, I explained the situation. The refund had been deposited to an account I did not recognize. The agent, patient, professional, doing her job, confirmed that the deposit had been made to an account associated with our joint return. "Is that account authorized on the return?" I said. She checked. "It appears to be," she said. The direct deposit information was updated when the return was filed. Updated when the return was filed. I had filed our return. I had filed it in February, sitting at the kitchen table, using the same tax software we had used the year before. Derek had been at work, or I had believed he was at work. What I understood sitting in my car in the parking lot with 47 minutes of hold time behind me was that at some point between me starting and me finishing the return, at some point when I had left the room, or when I had trusted the auto-populated fields from the previous year, the direct deposit information had been changed. I had been in and out of the kitchen that evening. Derek had come home around 9. I had finished the return after he got home. He had looked over my shoulder. He had said, "Looks good, babe." I filed it. He had already changed it. I did not say anything to Derek that evening. I need to explain this decision carefully because I think it is the most important one I made in the entire sequence of what followed. If I had confronted Derek on Tuesday, if I had come home and said, "I know what you did with the refund, where is our money?" several things would have happened. He would have had an explanation ready. He would have managed the confrontation the way people who have been planning something manage being caught with a story already constructed, with an alternative framing already prepared. He might have moved money. He might have called whoever he needed to call to put things in a configuration that was harder to trace. He might have done any number of things that a 27-year-old man who has been maintaining a secret bank account for 14 months might do when he realizes his wife knows. I did not confront Derek. I went home. I made dinner. I watched television. I went to bed. And the next morning I went to work, and I started making a list, not of feelings, of numbers, because I work with numbers every day, and I was very good at them, and Derek, it turned out, had not been careful enough with his. Here is what I knew by Wednesday morning. The refund was gone, deposited to Derek's individual account on Monday. The account had existed for 14 months. I did not know why he had it. I did not know yet what the money was for. I found out on Wednesday afternoon, not from Derek, from his sister. Kayla called me at 3:15, a call she had apparently been debating making for several days, based on what she told me when I answered. She had known something, she had been sitting with it, and she had decided, finally, that sitting with it was worse than saying it. She said, "Brittany, I need to tell you something about Derek and the money, and about someone named Vanessa." I sat very still at my desk. I said, "Tell me." She told me, and the specific cold clarity I had felt on Tuesday morning looking at the IRS portal became something even colder, because the money was not missing. It had gone somewhere very specific, to someone very specific, for something very specific, and what it had paid for was something I was going to be looking at without knowing what I was looking at for a long time. Vanessa. Kayla told me everything she knew. Vanessa Tate was 25 years old. She had been in Derek's life in the specific way that Kayla described, with the careful language of someone who is telling the truth while trying to be kind, for approximately 7 months. She worked at the same warehouse, different shift, days while Derek worked nights, which meant their overlap was in the specific window of shift change, an hour at the beginning and end of each other's days. 7 months. I had been married to Derek for 2 years. He had been with Vanessa for 7 months, and the $4,216, our refund, my overtime shifts, my packed lunches, had gone to a different woman's face. I sat at my desk after Kayla's call, and I thought about this for a long time. Not about Vanessa specifically, about the math. A rhinoplasty in Columbus, Ohio costs, depending on the surgeon and the complexity, between $3,000 and $6,000. Our refund was $4,216. It was enough. It was exactly enough, which told me that this had not been impulsive. Derek had not seen the refund arrive and made a spontaneous decision. He had calculated. He had known the refund was coming. He had known approximately how much it would be. He had known what Vanessa wanted. He had planned. The account opened 14 months ago. The refund redirected when I was out of the room. All of it planned. I closed my eyes. I opened them. I went back to my list. The list grew over the next 4 days. I want to be clear about what I was doing and what I was not doing. I was not building a case for divorce. That decision came later, and it was not complicated. I was not building a case for confrontation. I had decided, sitting in my car on Tuesday, that confrontation was not the tool I was reaching for. I was building a picture, a complete, accurate, numerically precise picture of Derek Cole's financial life, because I had realized something sitting with Kayla's information and my list and my knowledge of numbers. Derek was not careful with his. I worked in financial services. I knew what careful looked like. Derek had been careful enough to open a separate account. He had not been careful about what he put in it, and there was a great deal he had put in it. Derek's warehouse job paid $17.50 an hour, overtime after 40 hours, time and a half on weekends. His W-2 was modest. His actual income was not. Derek had side income, multiple streams of it. I had known this in a general way. He sold things occasionally, flipped equipment, helped people move for cash. It was the informal economy of someone who is handy and knows people and can turn that into money when he needs to. What I had not known was the scale of it, or that none of it was being reported. The flipped equipment. He bought broken power tools at garage sales, fixed them, sold them on Facebook Marketplace. Dozens of transactions over the previous year. Cash, not reported. The moving jobs. He had a truck. 3, sometimes 4 jobs a month. $100, $150 each. Cash, not reported. The scrap metal. He collected it, sorted it, sold it to a recycler on Morse Road, monthly, cash, not reported. I found out about all of it through the same source that had told me about the refund, numbers, specifically the numbers in Derek's Venmo account, which I was able to access because we had shared a payment account for household expenses, and he had used the same login for his personal Venmo, the way people who are not careful do. I did not access anything I was not authorized to access. He had given me the login. I simply looked at what was there. And what was there was a 14-month history of informal income that had never appeared on a tax return. I added it up. Approximately $11,000 over 14 months, unreported. I called a tax attorney on Friday. Her name was Donna Park. I found her through a colleague at work who had used her for a small business tax issue and described her as the most precise person I have ever sat across from. Donna's office was in Easton. I drove there on my lunch break. I brought my list. I laid it out. The refund, the redirect, the separate account, the Venmo history, the approximate totals. Donna looked at my list for a long time. "You work in financial services," she said. "Call center, accounts, and balances. You put this together yourself." "Yes," I said. She looked at the list again. "Brittany," she said, "what outcome are you looking for? Because you have options here. You have the refund redirect, which is potentially fraud on a jointly filed return. You have the unreported income, which is a separate issue entirely, and you have, depending on what you want to do about the divorce, a divorce proceeding where his concealed assets become relevant. I want to know what happens if I report the unreported income to the IRS." She was quiet for a moment. "You're a joint filer," she said. "If you filed jointly and he had income he didn't disclose to you for inclusion on the return, you may qualify as an innocent spouse, which means you're protected from liability for the underreporting, and as the person who brings the discrepancy to IRS attention." "What happens to him?" I said. Donna looked at her notes. "The IRS takes unreported income very seriously. Penalties and interest on underreported income can reach 3 times, I said. "I've read that the penalties can reach 3 times the original amount." She looked at me. "In cases of willful underreporting," she said carefully, "that's possible. Yes." I looked at my list. $11,000, unreported, 3 times. How do I file the report?
There is a form. Of course, there is a form. The IRS has a form for everything, which is, in my professional opinion, one of the more reassuring things about the federal government. Form 3949-A, Information Referral, the form you fill out when you want to report someone for tax fraud. Donna helped me complete it. I brought my documentation, the Venmo records, the marketplace transaction history I had compiled, the approximate dates and amounts. We sat in her office for 2 hours. We were very precise. Every number, every date, every transaction I could substantiate. And at the end of the 2 hours, Donna printed the form. She handed it to me. "Are you sure?" she said. I thought about Tuesday morning, the IRS portal, status, deposited, account ending, not mine. I thought about packed lunches, about 11 months of overtime shifts, about $4,216, and what it was supposed to be for. Yes, I said. I signed it. I confronted Derek on Saturday, 7 days after the Tuesday morning, 7 days during which he had no idea that anything had changed, that I had sat in my car in a parking lot and called the IRS, that I had built a list, that I had sat across from a tax attorney for 2 hours, that I had signed a form. He came home from the night shift at 7 a.m. He poured coffee. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. I put the IRS portal printout between us, the one showing the deposit, the account number. Derek, I said, tell me about this. He looked at the printout. He was very still. Britt, tell me about the account. The one you've had for 14 months, the one our refund went to. He looked at me, and I watched him calculate. I have watched many people calculate during difficult phone calls in my 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. I know what calculation looks like on a face, the specific micro-expressions of someone deciding which version of the truth to offer. He can explain, he said. I know about Vanessa. I know what the rhinoplasty was for. The calculation ended. What replaced it was smaller than I expected. The face of a man who has been found out and who does not have a script for this version of the conversation. Kayla told me, he said. Kayla told me, I confirmed. We sat at the kitchen table for 45 minutes. He told me things. I listened. I did not yell. I did not cry, not in front of him. At the end of the 45 minutes, I said, I'm filing for divorce, and there's something else I need to tell you. He looked up. I've already spoken to a tax attorney, I said, about your Venmo, about the marketplace sales, about the moving jobs and the scrap metal. He went very still. Britt, $11,000, approximately, unreported, over 14 months. The color left his face. I filed a report with the IRS last week, I said. You should probably speak to someone about that. I stood up. I picked up my coffee cup. The divorce papers will come from my attorney. Her information is on the counter. I went to the bedroom. I closed the door, and I let the numbers do the rest.
The IRS investigation took 4 months. This is, for the IRS, relatively fast, which tells you something about the quality of the documentation Donna and I had prepared and submitted. Derek hired a tax professional. I know this because Kayla told me. Kayla, who had chosen to tell me the truth, and who continued, in the months that followed, to be honest with me in ways that her brother was not. The tax professional apparently looked at the Venmo records and the marketplace history and advised Derek that contesting the report was not a viable strategy. The numbers were the numbers. They were Derek's numbers. They had his name on them, and I had submitted them precisely to the agency that processes such things. The final assessment came in September. The unreported income, confirmed at approximately $11,200. The penalty, 120% of the original amount, which in this case was approximately $13,400. The interest accrued during the investigation period, approximately $800. Total amount owed to the United States government, approximately $25,400, plus the original tax liability on the unreported income, plus the refund, which the IRS had flagged separately as potentially misdirected, and which Derek was required to account for. In total, Derek owed the United States government approximately $28,000. He had stolen $4,216 from me. The government was collecting 6 times what he had taken. The math worked out. The divorce finalized in November. 9 months after a Tuesday morning and an IRS portal and a number that didn't match. There was not much to divide. Whitehall apartment, rental in both names, which I kept because Derek moved in with his brother. The car was his. The furniture was mostly mine, accumulated from my parents' house and my own apartment before the marriage. We had a small joint savings account, $1,200, which we split. We had a tax refund that Derek had redirected. The divorce settlement addressed this. Derek was ordered to repay me my portion of the refund, $2,800, from whatever resources he had available, which at that point were considerably diminished. I received the payment in installments. The last one came in February, almost exactly 1 year after I had first filed our return. 1 year. In the span of that year, I had discovered what he had done, I had built a list, I had filed a report, I had divorced a man, I had watched the government collect 6 times what he had taken from me, and I had received, finally, what was mine.
Kayla and I still talk. This is the part of the story that surprises people most, I think, that I maintained any relationship with Derek's family after everything. But Kayla had called me. At 3:15 on a Wednesday afternoon, she had decided that telling the truth was more important than protecting her brother. That is not a small thing. That deserves something in return. We have coffee sometimes. We do not talk about Derek much, by mutual agreement, because there is not much left to say about him that would be useful. We talk about other things. Her job, my job, the east side of Columbus, and the specific texture of growing up in a family that paid its bills and kept its word. She is good company, and she knows, as I know, that some things are worth saying, even when they're hard to say. Vanessa. I have thought about Vanessa. Not often, and not with the specific anger I might have expected, more with the specific complicated feeling of someone who is trying to understand a situation that does not resolve into clean categories. She was 25 years old. She made a choice. She also, I believe, based on what Kayla told me, did not know the money was stolen. She did not know about me, or she did not know in the full sense of knowing. She knew Derek was with someone. She may not have known that the someone was a wife, or she may have known more than I would like to believe. I do not know. What I know is what the numbers say, and the numbers say everything I need them to. Last month I filed my taxes, alone this time, single filer, my income only, my withholdings, my refund. It goes to one account, mine, and I will know exactly where it is and exactly what it is for. I have already decided. Emergency fund. Finally. I am still at True Call Solutions. Same call center in Westerville, same headset, same accounts and balances, and the patient work of explaining numbers to people who are frustrated or confused or scared about money. I am still good at this work, better, maybe, than I was before, because I understand now, in a way I did not fully before, that numbers are not just data, they are evidence. They are the record of what actually happened beneath whatever story someone is telling about it. A number does not lie. A number can be hidden, but if you know where to look, if you know the right forms, the right portals, the right questions to ask of the right databases, the number is always there, waiting to be found. I think about the form sometimes. Form 3949A, Information Referral. 6 pages, precise, designed for exactly the situation I found myself in. There is something deeply satisfying about the existence of a form for this,
about the fact that the federal government, that enormous, impersonal, bureaucratic entity that Derek had trusted to not look too carefully at $11,000 of unreported income, has a specific mechanism for people like me to provide the information it needs. I did not do anything exceptional. I did not hire anyone. I did not stage anything. I did not make threats or cause scenes or say things that people would regret. I filled out a form, correctly, with documentation, and I let the system work. That is, I think, the most important thing I can say about what I did. The system works when you give it accurate information. Derek had been counting on the system not looking. I gave it a reason to look. My mother asked me in January whether I had any regrets. We were at her kitchen table, the same kitchen table where I had grown up watching my parents pay their bills and keep their word. About the divorce? I said. About any of it, she said. The IRS thing, all of it. I thought about it honestly. No, I said, and I want to be precise about why not. I'm not glad that things went the way they went. I'm not glad the marriage ended. I'm not glad I spent 11 months being careful with money while Derek was planning what to do with it. None of that is glad. But, my mother said. But I did the right thing, I said. Not the angry thing, not the dramatic thing, the right thing, which was to use the tools available to me to report accurate information to the correct authorities. Derek reported incorrect information to those same authorities for 14 months. I corrected the record. My mother thought about this. You sound like you're at work, she said. Maybe, but I mean it. She passed me the coffee. I know you do, she said. The refund this year will be approximately $1,900. I have already decided what to do with every dollar of it. $800 for the emergency fund, getting it started, finally, 2 years later than planned. $400 for the credit card, the same balance I had been planning to address with the stolen refund. $300 for a weekend somewhere, not planned yet, but somewhere. $400 for something I haven't decided yet, which is, I think, the point. The money is mine. The decision is mine. Nobody is planning how to use it in a separate account that I don't know exists. Nobody is calculating whether I'll notice. The number will go to my account, and I will know exactly where it is, and exactly what it means. It means I was right about the numbers. They always add up, eventually, to someone. That's the whole story, or the part I'm ready to tell. I want to say something about forms, about the specific, powerful, completely legal act of filling out a form correctly and submitting it to the correct agency. We live in a country with a tax system. That system relies on accurate information. When someone provides inaccurate information, when someone hides income, redirects a refund, maintains a separate account for 14 months, they are betting that no one with accurate information will tell the system what they know. I had accurate information. I told the system. I did not break any laws. I did not do anything that required a lawyer to accompany me. I hired one for guidance, but the act itself, the filing of Form 3949A, is something any citizen can do. I am not special. I am good with numbers, and I knew where to look. If you are sitting somewhere right now with numbers that don't add up, with a discrepancy you can't explain, with the specific cold feeling of understanding that someone has been not careful enough with what was supposed to be yours, look at the numbers, find the form, fill it out correctly, and let the system do what it was designed to do. The emergency fund is started. The credit card is lower. The weekend is still unplanned, which means it can be anything, and the numbers, finally, add up. Thanks for listening.